Welcome to the Elixelite Podcast, and today we're going to be exploring gamification in learning, and we have an expert with us. We're joined by Chloe Priestley. She's over 20 years experience across the learning landscape, from coaching, facilitation, and digital design. Hello, Chloe.
Hi.
How you doing? Can you, just for everybody in the room, can you give us a bit of background into your experience and how you got started?
Yeah, so I started in digital learning. Also, I did like facilitation and coaching, but the digital learning for me started around like 2008, something like that. And I remember starting back in 2008 in that digital landscape, and maybe about a year or two later, gamification started to come in, and everyone, it was kind of like the buzz. Everyone started talking about it. So it's been around for a while, and it seems so have I. So
It's definitely a growing topic, isn't it? Can you, for the audience that we've got with us, could you kind of cover some of those kind of key concepts or trends within that kind of gamified learning space?
yeah, so I guess over the years we've initially seen a lot of people talking about gamified learning experiences, and sometimes I think, if I take myself back to like maybe 10 years from now, people were talking more about like learning games, like learning simulations, kind of big learning solutions. And I think that the kind of disconnect along that time was that games weren't as mainstream as they are now. And I think, in the past few years, we've seen that it's been less of a niche. I know it's much more mainstream. I mean, you've got, it's an industry that's worth 4 times more than film and 3 times as much as music. And, you've got gaming mobile apps now as well. So it's much more accessible and much more kind of, like I say, mainstream. So when I'm talking to clients about it, it's much more accessible than it used to be. I think in the past it was much more of like almost like a gimmick and the gamers will like that, but how many people are gamers out there? And now it's quite clear that everyone's a gamer in one way or another, whether it's because you play Candy Crush or because you play World of Warcraft. There's everything in between.
It's quite a powerful thing, isn't it, as well? And I think that's why there is that industry growing around kind of how we can create more interactive and engaging experiences, specifically around learning.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the thing that kind of I've tend to come across, and this has been from working internally, in that kind of learning team, and also working in the vendor world. I've often seen that sometimes the excitement and enthusiasm about doing this type of solution can overtake everything else.
Yeah.
So someone will have a specific learning need that they have, and they'll think, oh, I look, everyone loves games. Why don't we do a gaming approach for this? It'll be great. But I think what isn't often considered in that situation, because of that excitement and enthusiasm, which it's kind of contagious, isn't it? But we kind of fail to think about the purpose and kind of going back to why are we making this intervention a gaming intervention as opposed to anything else.
Yeah.
So going back to that purpose is the bit that's really challenging, especially when you don't want to stifle the creativity. So for me, that's a really big thing to kind of reflect on when it comes to gamification and learning.
Yeah, how does it fit the overall organization as a whole? How does it fit, I guess, the organization's brand? What are they trying to fit as an organization? Because that's the thing, is that because there's so many different, because obviously we've had the pleasure of working with Sponge, particularly on over quite a lot over the last 10 years, and you have such a variety of clients, and those different clients have different needs in regards to how you're going to go about delivering specific learning, whether you're kind of delivering learning, whether they're wanting to help their suppliers to learn specifically around policy, or whether it's kind of direct to their sales team and helping to support their sales team in regards to their training. There's very different needs, and those environments are going to be different as well in regards to whether they have control over their specific learning environments as well. Like, is it something they're going to be doing as part of sat down at desk, kind of doing their job, or is it going to be something they have to kind of find time to do in their own time? And managing that is always going to be a challenge, I think.
Yeah, I think thinking that, if we make it a game, it will automatically be engaging is a falsehood.
Yeah.
That we need to kind of get over that. and exactly what you were saying around the kind of like brand synergy, having that alignment with does this fit the messaging that's coming from the organization
Yeah.
and the strategy, because it can feel like a real disconnect as well if it's done in the wrong way. Having that alignment back to the business, back to the purpose, really it's the fundamental part of it, I think, for
Yeah.
sure.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? Because if you use the phrase gamification, you can imagine there's some organisations who will suddenly go, "Oh, I don't know whether our investors who we're wanting to support are really going to feel that, or within our accounting team are going to feel that that's going to be the right fit." But I think that's it, isn't it? There's ways you can kind of bring gamification and techniques around gamification to suit that brand and suit that need. So the opportunities are still there, no matter what type of organisation you are. But
Oh,
yeah,
good. Yeah, so I was just going to say that just you were making me think about something when you were talking about that, and this is something we often see where there's a kind of misunderstanding, that gamification means making light of
yeah,
something, and that really isn't the case. You can have serious games, you can have games that have a lot of jeopardy in them, that can connect to very serious topics.
yeah,
So thinking that using that gaming mechanic within your learning is going to kind of be frivolous or kind of making light of anything is a misunderstanding, I think,
yeah,
as to what gaming mechanics can achieve for you. And I think sometimes it's about disassociating from gaming as we think about it, like the gaming apps
yeah,
and online gaming, to gaming mechanics that you might use within learning,
yeah.
because it all ties back into that kind of behavioral science piece of what makes us and motivates us to want to do something. So really tapping into that is the key part.
And it is a growing and developing industry. Is there anything you seeing with any kind of maybe any emerging trends or any kind of recent innovations that you're really seeing that is taking off to kind of really empower these platforms and the way that you're working?
Yeah, I'm not sure how new it is, but I think it's something that definitely adds a lot of rigor to gaming mechanics within learning, and I think something that can be used beyond learning as well. And that's the work that a person called Yukai Chu is doing, with a model that he's developed called Octalysis.
Mm.
Um, so this, I think, in the past when I've seen people talk about games, and you see kind of the books like Learn to Play, and things like that, and there's lots of kind of literature out there, but there are very few frameworks that help you apply it. And for me, in my job, I'm always looking for kind of practical approaches to these kinds of
Yeah,
solutions. So the model that Yukai Chu has done, I think, really brings in the human behaviour and that purpose that I mentioned into developing gamified solutions from the ground up. So you're not kind of retrofitting that to any of like, oh, we want to do games, but how do we make it fun? That's really what he's setting out there. And I think the more that people are using that type of rigorous framework, then it becomes a lot more credible, and people can see that it's being applied with that purpose in mind and not for any frivolous reasons.
yeah. And the beauty of that framework as well is I think it sets out that it doesn't have to be everything. There's measurement criteria in there to be able to measure and kind of different platforms and how they're performing in specific areas, and you realize actually like they really perform well in these areas, whereas this platform performs well in these areas. And how does what we're building design going to be able to build and developed in comparison to these? And is this the sort of are we doing the right things rather than there's so many different elements to the framework. It's like realizing that actually we probably only really need to focus on these core points because they back down to the point of having something that fits within the brand and within the purpose of the organization. There'll be ones which kind of fit better, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely. So there's this, techniques within the framework that talk about, things like intrinsic motivation versus extrinsic motivation. There's
Yeah,
things around, are you wanting this to be a short-term impact? Maybe you're bringing out, you've got a product launch and you just need to get this product information out there as quickly as possible. The long term is less important.
yeah,
Or maybe it's something that's more of a culture piece, and you need to think about that long term element. So there's that kind of way of thinking about the learning, which, if you have those things in mind, it can help direct you down the right path and the right gaming mechanics that fit those things, rather than saying, okay, well, let's stick some badges on it, let's put some points
yeah.
on it, for no real reason or purpose. So it's guiding you down the right path for the right solution to that, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and it gives you that basis to work from, really, to
Yeah,
be able
it's
to really kind
critical
of help.
thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So we've
around
got
it.
around our random kind of intermission piece that we come into, which is basically our no context given, no context needed, where I basically pick based on a conversation we had before, based on my knowledge of you. We'll pick basically three kind of choices. I'll pose three choices to you, and all I need from you is which one you would choose. So we're going to start. So this is one is relevant to the conversation we were having last time. So hair, right,
Oh,
and they're
okay.
relevant to us right now as well. Straight or curly for yourself?
Curly, although I'm not living the brand today, I am a curly girl at heart. So curly straight away.
Okay, house plants, Monstera or Pothos?
Monstera. Gives you the
Ooh,
tropical vibes when they get really big.
that's a difficult thing. I was like, both of those I want to dig into more, but we can't. That's the
Yeah.
rules. Um,
Keep it straight, yeah.
keep it straightforward. Books, right? Audio or print?
Audio. I'm definitely an
Audio
audiobook gal. Yeah. Especially when you're doing like household chores and things. They're just a great use of your time.
is a bit difficult to read while you're hoovering. I 100%
Oh,
get
it's
that.
maybe it's drowning out the children in the background.
Have that peace and quiet. So looping back into kind of the topic of conversation, so thinking about gamification and learning, um, what do you see the future of? What does the future look like? Is there anything, so people who are listening to the podcast at the moment, is there anything in particular they should be looking out for?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. Um, I went to Learning Tech earlier this year and saw Nigel Payne talking about well-being at work and how learning can be a force for good. And I definitely think we should be thinking about that when we're designing our gamified solutions. You know, how does this experience enrich the working life? How does it make life easier? How does it help connect you to the company that you work for and create that resonance? So I think that's a real challenge to kind of be laid down. Obviously, we're having a major, well-being kind of crisis at the moment. So anything that the L&D community can do to help with that, I think, is a noble cause and something we should really take seriously. The other thing, and I'm sure with all of these podcasts, this is a thing that's going to come up, but that's the AI conversation. And I think, AI could potentially help us make gamified experiences more easily. So I think just returning back to how we make gamified learning experiences, it's fairly easy to add points, badges, leaderboards, that kind of things. But as soon as you start to work on more complex learning experiences with gamified elements, it can be quite a all-encompassing design journey that you have to go on. You'll know yourself.
Yeah.
There's a lot of background that goes into that for the designers and the developers that need to make it. And I wonder if AI will help making those component parts easier, so there's less development time, the coding time, all of that kind of stuff that we're kind of starting to see come through in AI. So I think that could be a fantastic opportunity with AI. I've not seen it yet. I've not seen AI impacting gamified experiences in learning anyway. But I think there's probably an air of caution with that, with any of the AI stuff, that there's a risk that we could see maybe like a flood of learning experiences that are gamified but don't have that purposeful connection that I mentioned.
Yeah.
So we could see a lot of kind of homogenized gamified learning, which it looks great, but it's not necessarily connected and it's not looking at the purpose and the brand synergy that we talked about as well.
Yeah, I mean AI is and AI is specifically as a topic is a massive kind of focus of mine. Specific and learning is a big area in regards to where we're seeing quite a lot of things happening in that space, and it is a case of trying to really get an understanding of back down to purpose again. Why is that implementation happening? I think I have seen a few, and we get a few conversations with startups who are looking at how you can use it for scaling up mass levels of content in regards to be able to dynamically create that content. And back down to that point, if it does create a challenge there, if you're not kind of creating a managed learning experiences, not creating a managed learning experience, you need to like, how are you managing and controlling those objectives as to what that learning criteria is specifically for the people that you're working for. But I definitely think, yeah, you were saying before around content creation, there are areas where it can really impact and support the work that you're doing, and streamline the way that you're working. But as an organization, you have the ability and you have the expertise in place to be able to really use that technology to strengthen and streamline your delivery rather than completely replacing kind of some of the elements which we're looking at. But it's definitely a watch this space element, I think. And we could have a conversation around AI and learning and hyper personalization till probably for an hour. And it's kind of having to move that thing forward, I think. So on that, so looking at kind of, you touched on it a bit earlier around kind of some of the elements of how you'll see learning benefit in organisations. How are you really seeing kind of gamification, kind of learning, kind of really impacting society as a whole, and maybe kind of the wider industry and the organisations that you're supporting?
Yeah, I think it goes back to that well-being piece.
Yeah,
So, we are having this mental health crisis globally. So I think, for me, my focus is, yes, absolutely delivering content that does what we need it to do for the business strategy, but also keeping that in mind and how we're making those lives easier. And I think, the gaming framework that I mentioned, Octalysis, that is a framework that can be used beyond L&D. So if you're in a comms team and you want to do some gamified comms, then that's a framework that you absolutely could use outside of this industry.
yeah,
So I think there's absolutely opportunities to scale that beyond, into different industries. And like I said, for me, it really is about that kind of experiential piece, like how are you delighting your colleagues and making it, a really special and meaningful experience for them, rather than your kind of traditional click next type stuff that we, try and veer from at every opportunity.
yeah, definitely. It is kind of making back down to purpose again, isn't it? So
Yeah.
obviously one of the main things we want to be able to help promote is trying to get more people to look at how they could potentially be exploring gamification in learning for themselves. What steps would you kind of recommend people take to maybe further their knowledge or start exploring it as a subject?
Well, there is a 14-day Octalysis course that you can sign up for free. It's an email type course that you can go and do, and they send all the details to you each day for 14 days, which I've been through it myself, and there's some really golden nuggets in there that you can take and make your own. I'd say it really helps to have a project ongoing when you're doing that, so you've got something to apply it to. And then I would say, going back to how we started this, really question the purpose of the gamification elements that you're using, and think about the behavior that you're trying to impact, and tying it back into that business strategy piece, because without that, it's just kind of a vanity project without those things.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing, isn't it? It's like there are massive milestone opportunities here. It's weird, like with a podcast like this, usually I would like to kind of do some sort of summary, but actually the way you've just kind of rounded up that response in regards to next steps, I think acts as a really nice summary for organisations looking to explore this further, and those key topics. So I hope everyone's had the opportunity to listen and enjoy kind of the conversation that we've had today, and taken some things out of it. And obviously, if you're needing support with your e-learning as an organisation, make sure you get in touch with the team at Sponge, and I'm sure they'll be happy to help. Thank you, Chloe. Thanks so much for your time today and talking with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.